Welcome to Deep Conversations Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, and today I'm here with Miss LaVante Dorsey. She is a licensed clinical social
Social
worker.
worker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you have your own company.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Now, before we get into that, I kind of want you to bring the viewers into just tell a little bit about you. You know where you're from and how you grew up.
Yeah, I love that question. So I was born and raised, of course, in Delaware. I grew up in Dunleaf off of Newcastle Avenue. Proud to say, I
And
still love my community. I still attend church there, and
mhm.
I moved right up the street in Swanwick area now. And
Okay.
after living there, we moved to Eagle Glen out 273.
Mhm.
So I'm a very proud William Penn alumni, and yeah, my upbringing. I had an excellent big brother. His name is
Yeah.
Eric Dorsey. He's the king of cleats. And my mom and dad, my dad is a longshoreman. He works at the Port of Wilmington. And my
Mhm.
mom is now, she had awesome beginnings. She started off at, do you remember that state hospital? What was it called? But where people go when their family can no longer care for them. My mom started off
Like
caring
hospice.
for, yeah, like caring
Mhm.
for them. And now she is a vice president at WSFS.
Mm.
So yeah.
Big time. That's big time.
So
So,
yeah, I've had some excellent examples.
so what I'm gonna ask you what made you want to dive into your career with being a mental health counselor?
It's funny because growing up, I always said I wanted to be an ambulance driver. That's
Mhm.
all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So clearly helping people has always been in the picture, but I'll never forget we went on a church trip to Hershey Park, and while there I got a call that my cousin had been arrested for robbery. And I was like, I remember even thinking at that age, I had to be a teenager. I was like, what did we miss? How did we not help him? What did he need more of? So from then it kind of planted the seed. And then I went into University of Delaware undecided. I had no clue what I wanted to do the
Yeah.
first year. Then I was like, you know what? Human services seems like my kind of fit. I worked at a after school program on 4th Street at Be Ready Church for years and just pouring into the youth there. And so from there, I was like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into social work in some way and be a therapist. I didn't know it would take me here, but
Yeah.
it did.
It's funny you say that too, because I remember growing up, I was when I say quiet in high school, and my wife, she'll be happy to hear that too, because she graduated from William Penn too.
All right now.
Yeah. But me in high school, I didn't talk to nobody. And for me, it was weird because being around, I got three other brothers. So,
Uh-huh.
four boys it kind of all stair steps. I think that was one of maybe because that was the first time I was in school by myself.
Oh.
So it was, so it was weird. And then, just kind of having, different thoughts. I'm like, dang, it's kind of lonely in here. You know what I mean? Just those kind of things. And like you said, it's, who can, like, what did we miss and stuff like that. So if you could tell people what is mental health?
So I think a lot of us have a negative view on it, but it's really
Mhm.
about the health of your mind, the health of how you feel, and how you're just showing up in this world. Me and my friend had a conversation yesterday. She posted this quote. It said, most people die at 25, but we bury them at 70. I said,
Mm.
wait, what? Most people die at 25, but we don't bury them until 70. And I had to really let that sink in that so many times we're going through life, we're not happy, we're putting a mask on, pretending that we're happy. We're really dealing with a lot of internal things, whether it be stuff from our core family, whether it be financial issues, whether it be feeling like a failure because we didn't reach goals, or sitting in fear and stopping us from reaching our goals. So I thought about that quote, like, how many of us are really living and happy in this life that we're in today? And a lot of times with mental health, it's that big stigma one that Black folk ain't finna tell nobody what their problems are, or what happens in my house stays in my house, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm a be soft or weak for going to talk to someone, when really it's the most brave thing that we can do, because you're opening up and being vulnerable to help yourself to get to a better point. I hope that answered the question.
No, you did. No, you really did. Because I feel like sometimes, like you said, us in our culture, we don't open up about nothing, and I think that's a trauma stems way, way, way back. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
you know, I think people not wanting to open up and those kind of things. I think that stems from a lot of people not being comfortable with themselves.
I would say that's right. A lot of what we do in our sessions starts with discovery of self. Because a lot of times we say, well, this person did this and this happened here. And yeah, that can contribute to issues that people face. But really, it's about what we allowed to happen in some cases. Sometimes it was out of your control. What we allow and what we still sit in and the lessons that we have to learn. So it's definitely about self-discovery, increasing self-esteem, self-confidence. It's a whole bunch of inner work that we have to do, including myself, because I talk to
All
my
of us.
therapist every other week.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. And I think too, as men, men, we need to be a little bit more open in learning how to express ourselves, because it has nothing to do with being weak.
No,
You know what I mean?
absolutely
If
not.
you need help, you need help with something. It's We got to learn to realize that we can't do it all on our own sometimes. There's no way. I mean, think about it. When I always say, people always say, let go and let God, but that really is true.
Mm-hmm,
You have to, when you think about the things that you try to do and make it work on your own,
mm-hmm.
9 times, yeah, you see, 9 times out of 10, it's like you mess it up every time.
Yeah.
And that, you know better than me, but when you do those things like that, that's kind of what causes a lot of those ideas in your mind to start playing, and then it starts weighing on you, and then you start acting out in different ways.
Yeah. I have a t-shirt that says, actually, our company sells it. It says, I got God and my therapist. So for me, and I know a lot of people, religion has changed nowadays, but for me, the presence of God in my life and being raised in the church has been beyond powerful. It has opened doors for me that I never thought would be open. It has helped me in my lowest moments where I just cry out and say, God, like, you got to do this, because I sure enough can't. And I think at times when we get so low, we forget certain things that bring us joy, our relationship with God, but it's definitely imperative.
Would you Have you ever had well, before I ask you that, I'm gonna ask you this. What are some ways that what are some ways think people can do to prevent some mental health issues?
Well, one, it's definitely being aware of how you feel, being able to identify that, and not isolating yourself from the people who love and care about you that can say, hey, something doesn't seem quite the same about you, or really opening up and using our support networks. Because a lot of times when we're going through stuff, we're like, oh, they can't handle it. I don't want to put this on them. They're already dealing with enough. I just need to keep to myself. And really, your support group and having those outside resources is what can really, bring you out. And I do want to say, we more so like work with individuals who are struggling with anxiety, like day to day. You feel it in the pit of your stomach, your mind is racing, you're having all these thoughts that you just don't feel like you can control. Or individuals with depression, relationship issues. There are different, mental health, like schizophrenia,
Mm-hmm.
psychosis. That's not really our specialty.
Right, right.
And I don't know really, it's not really a prevention for that. It's more so taking care of yourself. But as far as the anxiety and depression, definitely using your support networks, definitely having a repertoire of coping skills, just knowing what is your go-to when you're feeling low. For me, oh, I'm going to go walk at the park. Oh, I'm going to go turn on my gospel music. Oh, I'm going to go shoot a well, I didn't jack up my knee, but I'm going to go shoot a basketball here and there. Like knowing what your go-to is, that's going to lift you up out of that. And more recently, I've started journaling. It initially wasn't my thing, but I'll pull out the notes in my iPhone and just journal out what I'm feeling, because you need that release.
Mm-hmm. What has there has there ever been some clients that you had where it kind of it was hard not to take that stuff home with you?
No. And I've always tried to figure out how I don't. But I think that goes back to my prayers because I always knew being in this field, it would be heavy. And I couldn't really tell you how I do it,
Mhm.
but it does not go home with me. We do our work in session. We have to write our clinical note about it. And I guess maybe that's my release. But outside of that, it doesn't take that weight on
Yeah.
me. It just really doesn't.
But you know what? But that's good though because it's you know, a lot of people can't separate that stuff. You know what I mean? So for you, it's like when I'm done here, that's done. It's done.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure while you're in it, it can be a lot sometimes.
Definitely. It's
Hmm.
definitely a lot because you want, as a therapist, you want to really tune in with what someone is saying. You have to follow and really kind of dig to see what they're not saying, where and help them get to the answers they're seeking. So it does take a lot out of you.
Hmm.
And that's why we keep notes. So the following week when we meet, I'll pick it back up, study it before we started our session, and then we picked up where we left off. But outside of that, it's like you got to put it in the box, put the lid on it.
Yeah, yeah, and leave that. Yeah, we can't let none of that out of there. But it's
Yeah.
this in this line of work that you do, it goes to show that you're a loving person because you care for people and you want to help. So you looking at or you thinking about young LaVante,
Mm.
what would you now tell her? Yeah. Yeah. That was the funniest response though.
Young LaVante is still working through some things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, oh my gosh, it is so funny that you asked question. I just really processed this in my own therapy session yesterday. I think growing up, being a plus size young lady,
Mm-hmm.
it came with a lot of those low self-esteem moments. And I don't think I ever really took note of how it carried into my adulthood and
Mm-hmm.
how it affected my relationships. But now I'm getting a clear thing on that. And that's what I'm talking about. It's that inner work that you always have to keep doing and being real with yourself on the things that were said to you, the things that were taught to you that kind of stuck. So, whereas, yeah, I'm pretty good on the confidence level, but it's that still one little piece that I'm still doing work on.
It's I mean, I could say the same thing about me. I've when I was growing up, again, the three brothers, my mom and my dad, I was born with cerebral palsy. I walked around, I did whatever, in the house, I wrestled, I fought, and everything. But when I went to school,
Mm-hmm.
people looked at you different. You know what I mean? It was just because it was just, you walking with a little limp and people may just kind of look down. Well, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, well, I didn't think nothing was wrong with me. I'm like, I didn't think that. You tell me what's wrong with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then when I go back home, I would ask my parents, and they're like, "There's nothing wrong with you. Don't worry about what nobody's saying." But as I got older, it was like you started to, realize it's like, what, just you can't worry about what people say, what people think. But
Mm-hmm.
in your mind, sometimes it's like now it doesn't bother me at
Yeah.
all. But now, and like sometimes in your mind, it's still you have that one
A
little
little bit you still
yeah, and it's like
got
that one little fly at the barbecue. You can't get away. Yeah. It's like, why you keep coming back, man?
Oh, no, that's 100% correct. And the issue is some people go years without fully addressing it, recognizing it, and working on it. And it can really be a kind of stuck point for people that if they just did the work, life would be so much better.
Yeah, and like you said too, when you go into other relationships and a lot of those things, if you haven't dealt with some of those things, that anger is going to triple over into things that you may think is your partner bothering you, but it could be something that always bothered you.
Yes. Yes. And that I think even outside of that point, if we don't work on like if we were in a relationship and the person kind of beat us down, insulted us. If we don't, a lot of times we jump right into the next thing without working on ourselves. And without that break, you're just going to take that into the next relationship. If somebody cheated on you in the past relationship, you're going to have trust issues in the next relationship if you didn't do the work. And a lot of times too, I remember a lot of the youth I worked with, a lot of the young men, because I work with some awesome young men, and they would say, I don't want to be anything like my dad. And I would work with them to get a clear picture on the father figure or the male they wanted to be. Because if you don't get that picture clear, you're bound to repeat it because that's what you know. Even though he wasn't a good dad, that's what you know. And you're bound to repeat it unless you really map out the different decisions you want to make for yourself.
And it's you saying that goes to show how, we're talking about God and stuff earlier. That's how you go to show how strong that spiritual world is, because even though some of those young men, their father might not have been around, like you said, you're bound to do that. It's because of that familiar spirit of which you can't get away from that thing. It's just you got to work on that thing every day.
You have to. And a lot of times we get so afraid of doing the work, afraid of addressing it, or a lot of times we mask the emotion, which is why some people drink heavy, some people smoke heavy, because to deal with that feeling, like that hurt, that pain in your chest, the pain in your stomach, is too much. Whereas I always tell people, listen, embrace it, feel it, cry it out. It's better to go through it than to try to jump over it.
Yeah. And that's I think that's a lot of times I had to learn it too growing up. It's easier to just run away from it. You know what I mean? Because it's like in our mind, we may think, if I just go over here for a day or two, but I come back, it's gonna be good. Nah.
No.
People try to mask it with alcohol. People try to mask it with the drug. When that high come down, it's still right there. You gotta fix it.
Yeah, in our work, we use the carpet analogy. I say, how much is under this carpet that we need to dig up? A lot of times it's scary for people to even lift the carpet, but you have to get it out.
Yeah, them bones in the closet. Now, what have you learned since you've become a social worker? What have you learned mentally and spiritually about yourself?
That's a tough one. Let me really think on that. What have I learned mentally and spiritually? I've learned that I'm tougher than I thought I was. I've learned that I am absolutely nothing without my relationship with God. And that's a continuing growth process. Like, I still have so much work to do there. I
know, me too.
But it's a great feeling to know. I remember when I was in grad school, I said the difference between my therapy sessions that I have with clients and anyone else's is going to be that for me, God is going to be in the room. God is going to give me the guidance. He's going to tell me. So there's moments in session where, especially if I have the relationship with client, because you can't always bring the religious part into it. And I can respect people's boundaries with that. But for the clients where I know I can, I'm like, check out this song. Like, the Lord just dropped this song in my brain and it usually is spot on. And they're like, whoa, that song really ministered to me. And thank you for sharing. So I think that's the difference for me as a therapist, and knowing, like I said before, in my toughest moments, I won't get too down because I know what God means to me, what that relationship means to me, and all he's done thus far, and that he won't leave me in current day.
Is there what has been one of your greatest accomplishments since you've been in the job that you're doing?
I would say there's two. There might be a couple pieces. When I look back at working at the after school program on 4th Street and the youth, how many years ago was that? They are like grown now. They're grown. And they still contact me and still see me as a safe space and still see me as someone that is willing to help them and that they can reach out to. One of my babies, grown man now, he was a little afraid because he knew I would get him right and get him in order. He did not want to come talk to me. He said that too. So that's a proud moment to know that my life, little girl from Dunleaf, can have an impact on others like that. I would say going to grad school, I went to the University of Pennsylvania, which at the time, so I ain't gonna say no names, but a pastor told me, "You sure you can go there?" Like, so much doubt. And it was so awesome for that same pastor, after I got my credentials, to ask me to come speak at their church and pay me for it. So that was pretty cool.
See how he works. See how God do though. See how God work right there. That's crazy. That is.
Definitely. And absolutely opening the private practice. It was a goal that I knew, because I didn't really care for working for people. So I knew I definitely wanted to have my own. I'm learning and growing in that every day, but having amazing therapists that work with me serving our community here in Delaware, that's definitely one of those big achievements as well.
Yeah. If you could for some of this generation, the young guys and the young girls who's ever going to be watching this, if you could say something to them that, some little words of encouragement, because I noticed with me, now in my life, I kind of want to I'm 39 coming up, but I know that I want to be like a big brother to some of these kids, because when you look at this generation, we have boys and girls clubs, we had
Yeah.
the PAL centers and all that kind of stuff. None of that stuff is around no more. So
No.
these kids, they're just acting out of emotion because they can't release it from somewhere. So if you had some kind of encouraging words or something for these kids, what would you say?
Definitely because it's tricky. A lot of times you see the lack of relationship between the youth and the adults that have kind of been through it. So it's two parts. I want the adults to be open to mentoring and leading the youth, but not from a I know it all perspective, where it's understood that our youth are very intelligent as well. They've had to adjust to different things. They know way more than us. I had a problem opening a video earlier today. They know way more than us.
We didn't have
and and for the youth to be open to knowing that all adults aren't here to criticize them, but to see their dreams and their visions and to be their cheerleader as well.
I got a lot of things that I'm going to be doing a little later on. I've been on a Comcast show. It's like a sports show, but it's called Faith in Sports. So we try to we try to bring it in. So I'm we're thinking about starting a basketball league now for some of those kids. And I definitely want to keep in touch with you, for maybe somehow we can, intertwine the two to kind of help some of these kids any kind of way that we can.
I love my athletes. I am one of the therapists for Wilmington University, all their sports teams. So yes, I love it. Yes.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, we definitely have to stay in touch, because I know now, and then talking with you, and I know that we only move the way God tells us to move. So this was supposed to happen, and again, and you're the lady that helped me, Nichelle, is that her name?
Yeah.
She's the bomb. I tell you, yeah, she be on it. So I'm shouting Nichelle out right now. She is, So we're definitely gonna keep in touch. But where can they find you on social media?
LaVante Dorsey on Instagram and Facebook, and our website is again www.lavantedorsey.com. Everything is basically my name. Makes it simple.
Yeah. And you got a dope website. I'm trying to get a website up myself.
Thank you.
I might steal a little bit of ideas just to.
Thank you. So HVD Studios handles all my websites, marketing stuff. They're awesome. So they just really did a revamp of the website because I wanted a little more on it. So they're awesome.
Yeah, they did a real good job. But yeah, we definitely gonna be keeping in touch with you because we're thinking about doing all of that. And I appreciate you for
Yeah.
jumping on my podcast with me. I want to shout out True Access Capital for making
Oh
this
yeah.
happen. Sarah Crawford and everybody else. So
Yes.
again, LaVante, Dorsey, thank you for jumping on this
Thank
podcast with me.
you for having me.
I
Thank
appreciate you so much. You have a good one.
you as well.
You're on YouTube, baby.